Manolo wasn't prepared for Greenland's version of summer. The weather and extreme isolation would take some getting used to.
The first few weeks were hard for Manolo, but his spirits soon lifted. The stops we made in some of the fishing villages gave both of us a boost. Our arrival was usually an event, and we spent many hours discussing kayaking techniques. Our paddles attracted a lot of attention. The traditional Inuit paddle is made of wood carved on a single plane. Ours were plastic with the blades turned at right angles. Demonstrations were necessary. Before coming to Greenland, Manolo and I had considered ourselves expert kayakers. But a close look at a traditional skin kayak soon confirmed our status. We were amateurs compared to the men who paddled these delicate, efficient craft.
It was only a matter of days before Ramón and Manolo were forced to test their real kayaking skills.
When the storm first broke, we weren't far from the mainland. The waves were high but not impossible. We thought if we kept close to the shore we'd be safer, but the rocks made that too dangerous. We moved farther out. Manolo was behind me. A few minutes later, he had disappeared. I tried to turn back, but the waves kept pushing me away. Then I saw something floating in the distance. It was a bag. Manolo's camera bag. But he was nowhere in sight. He was gone.
Manolo survived, but only through a combination of luck and physical stamina. The frigid waters of Davis Strait can claim a victim in a matter of minutes. Sheer determination is not enough. For Manolo, a sandy opening in the jagged shoreline was.
Luckily, we were near a settlement when the accident occurred. I went for help while Rafa searched for Manolo. When he finally located him, he was barely conscious and suffering from extreme hypothermia. We had to take him to a hospital. I blamed myself. My expedition had almost killed my friend.
The experience had left them shaken, but they agreed the expedition should carry on. Greenland is an island of extremes, breathtaking scenery, unpredictable weather, and warm hospitality. It is also a land where old and new seem to blend in perfect harmony. After a journey of more than 1,800 kilometers, the expedition finally reached Kusisat. It was near here, while hunting, that Ramón made a remarkable discovery. The Thule Inuit settled in Greenland in the 12th century. Many of their burial sites have been discovered along the coast. Because of permafrost, the Thule buried their dead in depressions in the mountainsides and covered the bodies with rock. It was one of these rock formations that attracted Ramón's attention.
Inside the grave was a body, so perfectly preserved it was almost lifelike. The hair and skin were still intact, and so was the caribou parka. The face was covered with a fur mask.
The mask signified the death of someone important, possibly a shaman or religious figure. The body in the grave was more than 400 years old. Late fall and early winter were a busy time for the expedition. They had to prepare for the next stage of the journey. Rafa used his artistic talents to adapt the traditional Inuit sled to the team's specifications. Manolo put those designs to work. Ramón settled into the painstaking business of sewing dog harnesses.
¿Cómo va? La cocina.
La cocina es lo que también va.
The next project was clothing. It was time to call upon a northern expert. With Annie's help, the dog fur and sealskin pants were soon ready for a final fitting. In February 1991, after a year in Greenland, the expedition left of Kusisat. To reach Canada, they would have to travel north to Surpassed in order to skirt an immense area of open water, or Polinia. From Surpassed, they would turn west and cross the sea ice to Grise Fjord in Canada. The Polinia was larger than expected, forcing the expedition to travel 200 kilometers further north before crossing. They were confident they would find game along the way. It was not to be. Short on food and worried about the dogs, they decided to head west to the Eureka weather station.
Our plan was to push ourselves as hard and fast as possible. The area we were crossing had never been explored, and without detailed maps, we could only hope we were taking the fastest route. It was anything but fast. We were north of the magnetic pole and couldn't rely on our compass to give an accurate reading. Time and time again, we ended up questioning our route. Manolo had his ideas, I had mine. But which of us was right?
Sí, ha habido una cuesta abajo que parecía y de repente era pina. Bueno, hemos...
After 2 weeks, we were still miles from Eureka. Our food supply was dangerously low. The dog food completely gone. Any hope of catching game had proven fruitless. Some of the dogs were beginning to show signs of hunger and exhaustion. Others had injured feet which required constant attention. I was feeling more and more unsure about our chances. But not Manolo. He had survived death before. He would survive it again. His belief kept me going, even when things started to get worse. Five dogs died of exhaustion. To save the rest, we abandoned one of the sleds and most of our gear. We hoped that a combined team and a lighter load would increase our chances.
"24 days after leaving Greenland, the expedition reached Eureka. 10 dogs had died of starvation and exhaustion or been lost to wolves. The weaker dogs they had carried by sled or in their arms. As a last resort, they were forced to feed the dead dogs to the living in order to keep going. This, more than any other part of the journey, was the hardest to bear. The dogs had given everything. They had arrived in Eureka exhausted, with no desire to continue. But after 2 weeks, Ramón was restless. Manolo knew once Ramón made his mind up, there was no stopping him. They carried on. Antonio Martínez, the fourth member of the expedition, had been waiting anxiously in Grise Fjord for their arrival. The story of their ordeal gave him more than enough to think about.
The reunion was a happy and sad one for us all, but especially for me. Manolo had to continue his studies and needed to return to Spain. We would not see him again until the expedition reached Alaska.
Buenas, muchachos.
Pues nada,
dale besos a la peña.
Nos vemos.
Llamar cuando tengáis problemas.
Voy a mirar ahí desde el avión, Manuel.